Welcome to our event tonight, coming to you virtually from all points in California and across the country. My name is Tamara Raspberry. I am the principal with Skyline Advocacy and your host for tonight's event. So thank you everyone for joining us and coming in. We're here to support Gary Slossberg for his campaign for El Dorado County Superior Court Judge. And let me bring in our man of the hour.
Yeah, hi, good evening.
Hi, Gary, we have some special guests in the room today.
Yes.
Like to introduce our special guests?
Sure, and let me also join in welcoming everyone who's been a part of this campaign. Campaigns are not easy, so having the support of friends and family and colleagues, it really means the world to me. I'm trying to do something important here in serving the El Dorado County community, so I appreciate everyone's efforts to be a part of that. So I want to thank the co-host of today's event, or this evening's event, Judge Ashworth and Judge Kingsbury. And I want to give both a brief introduction for both of them. So Judge Ashworth, she's the current presiding judge of the El Dorado County Superior Court. I got the chance to first meet her, I think it must have been towards the end of 2014. She had just been elected as Superior Court judge after a long stint at the DA's office. And she began her term in 2015. I was at the time the family law facilitator for the county, and she was assigned to the family law department. So we got to work very closely together. As you know, she got acquainted to her assignment, and I took direction from her into how to help in any way I could. It was great because we got to collaborate on various activities. Particularly, there was a project we did where we had a calendar specifically for self-represented litigants, and she would assign me a couple cases where I would try to do my best to see if I could resolve issues to make things go a bit quicker in court. But through that experience, I really got a chance to learn a lot from Judge Ashworth, and that's really only grown over the years, particularly since I've been the court commissioner. I'm often on the first floor of the Main Street Courthouse. She's just up the stairs in Department 1. And whenever I have a question, I know I can run up and ask her and seek her advice and counsel. So having her support in this campaign has been incredible for me. So I want to thank you for that.
Thank you, and you are welcome.
I also wanted to thank, of course, Judge Kingsbury, who I've also known for a long period of time. Judge Kingsbury, I think, needs no introduction. She's been revered in our legal community for decades. She previously worked at the DA's office and then the public defender's office, and then was elected to the Superior Court. I think it was '96, if I recall correctly.
96, you're right.
And she served the court with distinction during that entire time. Was the first female judicial officer in our county, the first female presiding judge in our county. Of course, Judge Ashworth being the second. And she's really steadied the court over the past 2 decades plus, playing that leadership role. I've really gotten the chance to know her better over the past 2 years as the court commissioner, and her advice, her guidance, not just as a commissioner, but really also throughout the campaign, has been invaluable. It's been great to be able to turn to her, not only for ethical questions, but also just for, practical challenges that arise in a campaign, given, she went through that experience as well. Some things have changed since when she ran, but also several things are still pretty much the same. So having her support as well has been incredible. So I just want to thank you both so much for your endorsement and your support.
Well, thank you, Gary. I'm very happy to be here, and it's my pleasure to assist in any way that I can.
Thank you.
I would echo those thoughts, and I am pleased to be here today in support of you.
Thank you very much.
Great. So we're going to have a little fireside chat right now to get to know our candidate Gary better, and also get to know Judge Kingsbury and Judge Ashworth. So for our respected judges on the panel, what does serving in the court mean to you? Can you give us a little reflection on that?
Sure. Judge Kay, do you want to start us off?
I would be happy to. When I decided to run for judge, I was a bit of an unwilling recruit, and I know we'll have some more questions about this later, but people actually came to me and asked me to run for judge, and the thought of going around and shaking hands and kissing babies was a little scary to me. I'm kind of a private person. Most of the people who knew me here in Tahoe didn't even necessarily know that I was a lawyer. And so the idea of being involved in a political campaign when I was a decidedly non-political person was pretty intimidating. But once I went through the process and I got elected, your life changes in a lot of different ways. First of all, everybody refers to you as judge, and I frankly cringed about that for quite some time. Obviously, I finally got used to it. My husband could never understand why it would take me so long, for example, to go to the grocery store. And it's because you would run into people who would just want to talk to you, not about cases or anything that you can't talk about, but just talk about life and to get to know you. And you really become part of the fabric of the community in a much different way when you're a public servant. But I have had a chance to meet so many people in the process of going through my campaign. I still run into people now, nearly 30 years later, who will tell me that they met me when I was campaigning at outside of O'Reilly's in El Dorado Hills or at the fairgrounds at some sort of event. I know Gary just was at a swap meet at the fairgrounds, and it really became a lot of fun after a while because you really felt connected with the community. And once you actually are doing the job as judge, you're really in a position to help people make their lives better, to help right wrongs, to hold people accountable for things that they've done that violate society's laws. And it's a pretty awesome responsibility, but I think that it's one that was probably fairly suited to my personality. And I think the same is true for my colleague, Judge Ashworth, as well as for Commissioner Slossberg. And I think that's one of the reasons why we think that he will make an excellent judge, and why we've encouraged everyone to support his candidacy.
Thank you. Judge Ashworth?
I would, a lot of my comments are the same. I think serving in the court also means to me a greater responsibility to the community of El Dorado County. I was in public service, much like Judge Kingsbury, before being elected to the bench. And it certainly is a different role for serving the community. And you don't get to necessarily open up to the individuals that are before you, but much like Judge Kingsbury had just indicated, during the campaign process itself, you definitely have the opportunity to get out, meet people in the community, and see the people face to face that you are actually serving in that capacity. And it is a very awesome responsibility, one that is not taken lightly. And it's also one that you have to approach with a lot of humility because of the responsibility that you have. And that's something that I do take very seriously every day. And also something that I see with Gary, something that he portrays each day as he approaches the cases that he handles as well.
So the theme that I'm hearing here is the opportunity to serve in a different capacity. There's lots of ways to serve your community, and serving on the bench is one of those ways. And it sounds like for both you and Judge Kingsbury, it wasn't your plan at the beginning, but it became a natural progression of your career. And thanks for sharing about why Gary would make an excellent justice or judge. Sorry, Gary, I promoted you, but an excellent jurist. So Gary, why are you running for El Dorado Superior Court Judge?
Yeah, sure. And I think the theme that's playing out here about it wasn't something that, people already always planned upon of seeking this office. It's the same for me. For me, it's always been important to serve the community. Public service has been integral to my life. Since I really was a young child, I remember my mom participating in community service organizations. And I think I was just set up for a life of service based on the modeling that was put in front of me. And it was when I was in law school, I was a member of the Harvard Legal Aid Bureau. And in that job, I represented litigants who could not afford an attorney of their own. And I saw how our legal system, it's not the same for everybody. And that we have a ways to go to ensure that every person, regardless of their background, is treated the same in a court of law. And it became clear to me that my life, I needed to be, I had to be committed throughout my career about trying to make sure everyone could be heard in the court system. So that's kind of has been the continuing thread throughout my career choices. I worked in legal services, most recently in South Lake Tahoe for Live Violence Free, formerly the South Lake Tahoe Women's Center, representing survivors of domestic violence and sexual assault, and trying to make sure they had a say in the process and their cases were resolved on their merits. I then worked as the family law facilitator. As I noted earlier, I helped people navigate the family law process. And in that role, I helped, I'd say, well over 8,000 residents of the county, making sure they understood the system and could fill out forms and could have their cases resolved in ways where they felt like they were fully part of the process. I worked for the state dealing with child support issues, trying to make sure that the courts had the training and resources they needed to ensure people's due process rights and also to make sure money got to families in crisis as quick as possible. But it's really been in this role as a court commissioner where I've had the most direct impact on making sure people are heard in the court process. And I've learned as a judicial officer that it's not just the orders that a judge makes or a judicial officer makes, but it's how those orders are made and how the courtroom is structured. And I've tried to structure the courtroom in a way where I've increased the sense of civility, the sense of mutual respect, because I think that has been a lost art as of recent, and it's important to build those connections throughout the community. And I try to do that while still, of course, ensuring that everyone's accountable under the law, ensuring that everyone's due process rights are guaranteed. So the public service aspect, naturally, it led me down a path where I eventually pursued judicial service because it seemed to match my skill set. I listen well. I like de-escalating conflict. I'm good at that. I'm patient in dealing with people who are highly emotional, and I found myself good at bringing down those emotions. I like helping people move on with their life through tough circumstances, and I'm good at dealing with complex legal situations, legal issues in quick time. So it's also a challenging job. So it all kind of both met my desire for public service combined with what I thought were skill sets, which lent itself well for that type of career path. And then finally, really why I'm running now is I love El Dorado County. I've worked more than half my legal career in El Dorado County, serving the needs of residents here. And when this opportunity arose, it really was an opportunity to just take a step up and do more and take a bigger leadership role in the county. And I'm just fortunate to have this opportunity, to have the support of the bench as I go forth. That's really also pushed me forward to taking on this responsibility and this opportunity. So that's why I'm running at this time.
As a lay person who doesn't, I think I had a parking ticket one time, so the time I've been in court, but being in court is a scary thing. And for the lawyers and for the judges and for people who run the court system, it's just going to work every day. But when you're on the other side of that can be a scary situation to be in, no matter what side of the aisle you're on. And so walking into a courtroom where you know that the person presiding over whatever the situation is that finds you in that courtroom is fair, but also to keep you calm in a situation that's probably, a very scary moment or a very anxiety-ridden moment. I think is something that people want. They want to know when they're walking into a courtroom that everyone is going to be fair, but also at probably what's a very uncertain time of their lives, that the person who's talking to them from the bench presents a sense of calmness and brings down the emotion so that the law could be figured out in that room.
Yeah, well, to build on that, my wife was commenting to me, I think it was this morning, how there was a study about kids and anxiety. And one of the most anxiety producing experiences is when their parents are in court. And, even more anxiety producing than a lot of other things that we might think are high on the list. So it's so important to keep those things in mind, that it's not just the outcome, but the way we get to the outcome, and trying to reduce that level of anxiety. It plays a big role, not only on the participants in that room, but that entire family dynamic. So I try to keep those things in mind in my current work as a court commissioner.
That's great to hear. And if people like what they hear, you can click on this QR code, you raise your phone up to it. You go on camera mode, you raise your phone up to it, and it brings up a website. And on this website, you can donate to Gary Slossberg for El Dorado Superior Court Judge. Thanks, Gary. So this is your first time, running for office, correct? And what's been the biggest challenge of running for office?
Well, I've run for some things in the past, but I mean, this is the first time up here, and really in something this large, and particularly in a county. A county this large, and it's very challenging. It's and I think the biggest challenge for me is running for judicial office is so distinct from running for any other type of elected office. The rules of the game are different. You can't really, you can't talk about issues in the same way that you can if you're running for, let's say, Board of Supervisors or City Council. So that can be frustrating to voters out there, because they want to know where you stand on certain issues, and they think you're dodging the question when you tell them that there are ethical restraints to comments you can make, because as a sitting judicial officer, I can't comment on cases, I can't comment on an issue that might come before me, because that would foreshadow where I might go, and that would give the appearance of bias. So I can't do those things. What also has been a challenge is that the judicial office, people don't know a lot about it. So when I'm out in the community, it's tough for people. People don't really know what's going on, first off, because it's not a high profile race. And it's tough to evaluate candidates, because you're talking about your experience, but again, not the issues. It's sometimes tough to get people engaged in this type of campaign, because it's not the same as other types of campaigns. So of course, I try to communicate the importance of having a fair and impartial system, and how I'm well positioned to do that. But it's that's really been a challenge for me. But it's something I'm learning to do better and better as the weeks go by, as we get closer and closer to June 7th.
Oh yeah, that's coming up. For Judge Kingsbury and Judge Ashworth, what about you when you ran for your office? What was one of the most challenging parts of running for office?
I guess I can go first. And I think probably the most challenging part of running for office for me was asking people for money. So, campaigns cost money. And I think in today's world, they cost significantly more than back in the day when I ran, because you have websites, you might have a Facebook, social media page, you might do Twitter, you might do other platforms. And all of that takes time, takes money to administer. You have to buy ads, you have to send out mailers and that sort of thing. And all of that costs money. And much like Gary was talking about, if you're running for Board of Supervisors or you're running for City Council, oftentimes if you're elected, there are things that you can do for your constituents, and you can tell them some of the things that you can do for them. But as a judge, you can't promise them anything other than the fact that you will be fair, that you will be impartial, that you will follow the law, that you won't legislate from the bench. I mean, the kinds of things that people want to hear. but because you can't do anything for them and you can't promise them anything, it's a much different situation. So as a result, people historically do not donate as much to judicial campaigns. The logical people who donate are lawyers who appear before the judge, and usually to hedge their bets, they give a small donation to each side, and don't necessarily, because they don't know who's going to win or who's going to lose, and they're just trying to hedge their bet. And so that was one of the toughest things. The other tough thing was if you're working full time and you're trying to run a campaign and you also have a personal life that you want to maintain, that makes it very difficult. I will say that gave me the skill set to manage my time pretty efficiently once I got on the bench. But I echo some of the things that Gary had to say. I think that people want to hear what your position is on burning legal issues. And there's not a lot you can say about that. And that's very frustrating for people. But, what you can do is provide hypotheticals that illustrate points and how the law works in different ways. And I kind of figured out ethical ways to be able to address some of those questions without foretelling, to use Gary's word, how I might decide on a particular issue. I mean, certainly the recent drama around the Supreme Court draft opinion that's out there demonstrates how important it is that judges not talk about things that are pending before them.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Thank you for that. Judge Ashworth?
Absolutely. The time commitment when you are running for this position is extraordinary. And that was one of the biggest challenges, as Judge Kingsbury and has just indicated, working full-time, and particularly working full-time in public service, because where if you are working in private capacity, so in private law, then your time is your own and you can make your own hours. But both myself and Judge Kingsbury, and then Gary as well, were working in public service. So for the county, or Gary as a commissioner, we're already in that public service capacity. So if we wanted to do anything, it was after hours, before hours, or you took vacation time.
Mm-hmm.
There's absolutely no campaigning in or around a courthouse. No side conversations with attorneys. So it's a lot of meetings. As a matter of fact, that was one of the conversations that I had very early on with Gary when he was talking about running for this office, was be prepared to be away from your family at least 5, if not 6 nights a week, in addition to your full-time job. And be committed to that because that's what it will require. And I would say that the other thing, besides asking people for money, which is absolutely a very difficult thing to do, I was not very good at it myself either. But the other thing that I found difficult was talking about myself. I'm not good about talking about myself at all, and that's what people want to know. They want to know all about you, and that was a very difficult thing for me. But again, I enjoyed getting out there, getting to know people, and it gave me the opportunity to kind of raise that confidence level, but get a little bit more comfortable talking about myself. Still wasn't easy. Still don't like it.
Thank you. I see Judge Kingsbury, you have your hand up. Come on in. Come on back.
I did. And there was just one other thing that I wanted to say, and that is that, people watch television, read newspapers, social media, and that sort of thing. And there certainly is a lot of discourse about candidates and about candidates' positions. And one of the things I was warned about when I first made the decision to run was, people are going to say really mean things about you. And frankly, I wasn't very used to it. But I also felt that it was not ever a good idea to engage. And people sometimes with this very adversarial and combative media that we have seem to expect sort of a tit for tat. And I didn't want to win my election based on the shortcomings of my opponent. And I also didn't want to engage people that I knew weren't going to support me. And so I think there's a tendency for people to think, well, if there's an untrue piece of information that somebody posts on social media or that they comment about on the news, and the candidate doesn't respond to that somehow means that person is weak, or they're conceding that information is correct. And the reality is it's completely inappropriate for a judge or a judicial candidate to get involved in that manner. And one of the things that I know Gary understands and that he believes in is that he wants to win based on his strengths and what he has to offer. I mean, this is a young man who has a degree from Harvard Law School, something I probably couldn't have gotten. And he could have parlayed that degree into a very high paying position at any law firm throughout the country. And instead, from the start of his career up to and including his position now, he's been committed to serving the public and serving the community. And that's one of the reasons that I think he'll make a spectacular judge. That's all I had to say. Thanks.
Thank you for that. Thank you.
That's a very good point, Judge Kingsbury. And I also pointed that out to Gary, that when you graduate from Harvard Law, right, you have your pick of all the top law firms in the country where you can make gobs and goobly gobs of money. And to say, well, I choose public service and legal aid, no less, that type of person, you see the values that person is coming with, and has carried that along their tenure in the legal field. So we talked about the most challenging. What's the most surprising? What has surprised you the most about running for office, Gary?
So for me, I've been out to a lot of groups. The campaign, as both Judge Ashworth and Judge Kingsbury talked about, it's very grueling. It takes a lot of time away from family. You go to a lot of meetings, and I've gone to every meeting. I've gone to meetings, filled with people on the left, on the right, somewhere in between. And what has surprised me is that the things you hear at the meetings, the way people talk about it might be different, but the concerns, the anxieties, the issues of importance, there's a lot of, they're mostly the same from my perspective, from meeting to meeting. Everyone's concerned that they want a safe community. They want places where they feel comfortable raising their family. They want a system that they can trust. They don't want people's stake in life in the system be determined by finances. They want it to be based on merit and the worth of everybody. So there's commonalities, and sometimes in this polarized society, I think we forget that, and we think that we're really very far apart. When the truth is, there is more that connects us, and there's more similarities than differences. And that's what I've really learned, which surprised me. Again, the way people talk about it might be different, but what people are concerned about is mostly the same. And it's been reinforcing for me because, my goal in public service has been, those things to keep communities safe, to, keep them strong, to make sure the system in particular is one that people can have faith in. And hearing that that's what people all across the spectrum are concerned about, it lets me know I'm on the right path.
I think so. I think you're on the right path too. Judge Kingsbury, is there something that surprised you?
I think one of the things that surprised me is, first of all, how vast our county is. I mean, I really had very little idea, even though I'd been to many parts of the county, how far away one part was from another, how different the different communities were within our county. I found out that much like Gary said, people are more alike than they are different, regardless of their political perspective. And I think that the other thing that I found out is that people by and large have pretty strong respect for the court and for the court system, but the other than going to court for, say, a traffic ticket or something like you spoke about, most people, their experiences with the court system were not necessarily positive ones, because most of those folks were regular people, and they came to court for something that wasn't necessarily pleasant, like a traffic ticket, or maybe they went through a divorce, or maybe they had to go to small claims court and sue somebody, or they were sued. And I think that knowing that the judges who are hearing the cases are regular people who are interested in going out into the community and hearing what the community thinks, was really surprising to me. And the other thing that was surprising to me is I found out, for example, that a lot of people felt that they were kind of abused as jurors, and that's the other contact that people have with the court system. And so one of my goals, if I got elected, was to try to make it easier to serve as a juror and to make some changes where it would be, if not a wonderful experience, at least a more pleasant experience. And I do think that we've made some significant inroads in that area with our court in particular. And I think we try and make it as user-friendly for our citizens to serve on a jury. And I know that those kinds of innovations are things that Gary and I know Judge Ashworth are interested in continuing to improve upon, and to make our court the best possible court it can be to serve the citizens of our county.
Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, I thought I was on mute. Judge Ashworth, what about you? What was something that surprised you the most when you ran for your office?
I would say the thing that surprised me the most was how willing people were to stop and talk to me about the office. So as I was walking around different communities, as Judge Kingsbury just indicated, our county, though smaller in population compared to some of our other surrounding counties, is quite large as far as land itself. And so it can be difficult to get to all of our pockets, including Georgetown, Somerset, South Lake Tahoe, Placerville, and then the western part of, as well as the western part of the county. And but going out into those neighborhoods and talking to people, I was surprised that a lot of people were willing to engage me in conversation and wanted to talk and learn more about the office if they hadn't had any contact with the judicial system. And it was nice. It was great to be able to educate people, but also gave me the opportunity to get to know people in the community more as well.
Mm-hmm.
If I could add one more thing, what has surprised me is walking through the communities is how many streets there are where on one side, the driveway goes up 20 feet and the other side, the driveway goes down 20 feet. So you're constantly walking up and down as you knock on doors. That was not a welcoming surprise, but it certainly has improved my heart rate.
Right. And you're probably closing all your loops on your Apple Watch for
very much
steps in.
Yep.
Yeah. Along with like really bad campaign food, the upside of campaigning is the meeting people, knocking on the doors and closing your rings and seeing the county, right? Because you probably have found streets you never knew existed, but every behind every door is a voter. So you got to knock on all those doors.
That's right.
Yeah. I'm checking and we don't have anything in the chat, I don't see, but if anyone has a question, feel free to drop it in the chat. And I will make sure to get to you. But so when you all were a younger version of yourself and were deciding what career to choose, why did you choose law? So we'll start with our candidate, Gary. Gary, why did you choose a career in law?
So at a young age, I used to go to summer camp. And so I always remembered having counselors who mentored me, and I wanted to one day play that role. So I think that sort of led to me being really concerned about wanting to help children out. And that's something that kind of has stuck with me. So particularly in high school and college, I had my bachelor's degree was in psychology. So I was interested in dealing with issues affecting children. But I also had this other side of me that was very analytical, that enjoyed debating, that enjoyed like sorting through issues and, trying to just analyze things from a bunch of different perspectives. So I think those two interests, caring about children and their welfare, and plus enjoying the logical analysis of things, it naturally led me into wanting to go into a career in law where I could help kids. Mm-hmm. And that's why I started when I graduated law school, dealing with family law. And that's, it's kind of changed over time, but the path's kind of led me to where I am now. But that's why I pursued law school. It just sort of fit my interest and fit what I enjoyed thinking about.
Judge Kingsbury, what about you? Why did you decide to pursue a career in law?
Well, I wasn't as prescient in terms of why I wanted to go into law. Much like Gary, one of my majors was psychology, the other was criminal justice. And I think although I found out later that I was wrong, I didn't know any lawyers. I didn't know anything really about the law. But in the process of pursuing a degree in criminal justice, you have to take certain classes in the law. I thought I might become a police officer, but struggled back in those days with some of the physical performance requirements. They weren't particularly gender friendly at that time. I mean, I'm pretty old, so it was a long time ago. And so I really enjoyed the law classes that I took in the criminal justice program. And a bunch of people that were classmates of mine were going to go to law school. And I thought, sounds good. You're young. It seemed like a good idea at the time. And so we all took the law school admission test. Shockingly, I did better than everyone else and applied for law school. Unfortunately, right before I applied, I went through a divorce. And so I had to pivot a little bit. I ended up having to go to an evening program so I could continue. I worked about 60 to 80 hours a week the entire time through law school. It was a long time. And so, but I found it was a good fit for me. And because of my background in studying criminal justice, I thought I would initially go into criminal law, but I was working for the district attorney's office in Sacramento. The DA that I worked for and who hired me got voted out of office. I was just a law student intern, and usually what would happen is once you pass the bar, they'd hire you on as a deputy district attorney. Well, he got voted out of office, and so I had to pivot. And so I started out my practice first doing civil law, family law, just the sort of the opposite of what I thought I was going to do. And I worked in that field for about 3 years until I moved to El Dorado County and went to work for the district attorney's office. And so I'm kind of an exception in the sense that when I went on the bench, I had a background literally in practicing virtually every kind of law that was out there, as well as being a prosecutor. And I think it gave me a pretty good background. And Gary, I know, has had an experience handling a lot of different types of law in his various assignments, as well as in working as the family law facilitator and self-help attorney for the court. And having that background in all of the different areas of the law really, from my view, makes him very well poised to assume the role of Superior Court judge.
Oh, thank you. Judge Ashworth, what about you?
Mine is probably not as exciting or as insightful. I should have majored in psychology. I majored in political science. Really didn't enjoy it too much until I took a law class in undergrad, and became something that I thought about pursuing, and ended up pursuing that after my undergrad studies. Went into law school thinking I was going to pursue one type of law, and ended up liking something else once I got into law school. So my path has gone through a couple of changes, but it's led me here. It's been good.
Oh, thank you for sharing. So we do have some questions that came in, and one was answered, but I'll just say it out loud, that judicial terms are 6 years. And so, so once elected, judges will have to run for their term every 6 years. And judicial races are unusual, as opposed to other offices where if a judge doesn't have an opponent, then they don't appear on the ballot. And so you may not be seen on the ballot for a few years after this race. And so so when seats are open and there's a competition for the seat, then right, the focus is on that race. But then after that, right, you still have to file the paperwork, go through all that process, and that, that costs a lot of money to file the paperwork. But if there's no opponent, then when the election happens, you're declared the winner. And the votes are, there's not even votes counted. It's just the registrar's office declares you a winner. And there's another question: how can someone get a yard sign if they want to help you and put Gary Slossberg for judge all over the county? How do they get a lawn sign?
Well, that's a good question. So, one way to help out is, of course, everything in a campaign costs money. So yard signs is one of them. So to help me get more yard signs, donations always help with that, to make sure I have that supply. But to actually get a yard sign, you can reach out through my Facebook site is one way to do that. You can send me a message or leave a comment. Mm-hmm. Another way is through my website. There's a contact button. If you click on the contact button, the message will come to me, and I'll either arrange for myself or one of my volunteers to get that yard sign out to you. So we're happy to we want to get that out as much as we can. As it's been stated, the county is very large, so I need to get my name out as best I can to as many places as possible.
And what's that website again?
Thank you. It's slossbergforjudge.com.
Slossberg for Judge. I'm putting that in the chat, so you can go to the website and get a lawn sign. And your Facebook is Gary Slossberg for Judge on Facebook.
That's right. It's if you type in Gary Slossberg for Judge, it'll probably pop up, because I don't think there's any other Gary Slossbergs running for judge. But in case there are, if you type in 2022, you'll get to the right place.
Okay, great. I'm throwing that in the chat too. Bumper stickers.
So I don't have bumper stickers. The main goodie, I guess, the main swag is are the lawn signs. I do have buttons, so there are buttons that I have that I can give out as well if people want to wear those around the community. Mm-hmm.
And Judge Kingsbury added a caveat to what we discussed earlier. So if someone is appointed by the governor, for a judicial seat, they can finish out that term, but then we'll have to run in the next election. And that usually happens for anyone who's appointed to a vacancy on any elected seat. Then when that term is over, they have to run again. And so sometimes we see that where someone's, just got appointed, and then a couple of months later, they have to run for that seat because of those rules. Thank you for that question. And it looks like I got everything in here. Oh, so Gary, there's a question here. We could just move on to our next subject about your financial needs. So do you want to talk a bit about, why we're doing this? I want to remind everyone that you can use your phone to scan the QR code here, and that takes you to Gary's website, Gary's fundraising site, where you can make a donation. It's just a scan and click, put in your information, hit send, and you're good. Or you can also visit the website that's in the chat. And if you scroll up to the top of the chat, it's listed there.
Yeah, so as far as financial goals, as has been stated many times, campaigns are expensive. Raising money is difficult, particularly difficult for a judicial election, since it's not always easy to get people excited about it. As Judge Kingsbury said, you can't promise people anything except for a fair and impartial justice system. And that's not always the biggest motivating factor, although maybe it should be, but it's not always the biggest motivating factor. But in my campaign in particular, it's going to cost me by the end of the day around $45,000 to run this campaign. So I'm trying to raise more money over the next few weeks to close that gap. Whenever you see a yard sign or a larger sign, maybe out on the 50, just know that each of those signs cost a good deal of money. The big ones, it's $40-50 a pop. The small ones, at least about $10 or so, and there's a lot of them. And that doesn't include the flyers, the mailers. I just sent out about 40,000 mailers throughout the community. So in order to make all that happen, it does take a lot. So I'm of course relying on the generosity and support of people in the community who are willing to chip in. Any amount is appreciated. No amount is too small. So any help that can be given, I appreciate from the bottom of my heart.
And I put the links there in the chat. So you can find that. And like I said, also the QR code here at the on your screen. If your phone's not reading it, just make it bigger. And but you should be able to read it. Just a point and a scan and a click, and it takes you right to the website. Well, I want to thank our guests, our special guests here. Gary, I'll let you close and thanking Judge Kingsbury and Judge Ashworth.
Sure. And my wife might be on. Is it okay to just give her a quick recognition?
Oh, yeah. I was going to bring her on right after that, but I will bring her on now.
Oh, okay. Or whatever order.
Let's go ahead.
Okay. Let's see. Is she on?
Yeah, we are.
Yes.
So that's my wife, Elaine, and my son, Charlie. And
Hi, can you see us?
yeah, we can see you. And Juliet, want to pop on the screen for a second? There she is. So I just want to thank them. They've been incredible throughout this campaign. My wife in particular, she's, as been stated earlier, I'm gone so often, and she's been dealing with Charlie and Juliet and taking care of all their needs in the house and everything, almost single-handedly. So I just want to thank them for all they've done to help me out. Really, they're my foundation. Whenever I have a tough day on the campaign trail, coming home and seeing them, it brightens my day and lets me know I'm doing the right thing and trying to build strong communities, strong families, like I have in my own household. So thanks, babe. Thanks, kids.
Of course, yes. Thanks, everyone.
So I also just wanted to thank again Judge Ashworth and Judge Kingsbury. As I think what I've touted the most throughout my campaign, I think my biggest argument has been the support I've had from the bench here in El Dorado County. I've been fortunate to have the support of all the current judicial officers in the county, all of the retired judges that have endorsed the candidate, also the tribal court judge, Judge Victoria Shaw from the Shingle Springs Band of Miwok Indians Tribal Court. But truthfully, it's been Judge Ashworth and Judge Kingsbury. I mean, they've formed such a foundation. They're the leaders of this legal community, and having their support has been invaluable. Just people to turn to for guidance. And honestly, I can tell you when I'm on the campaign trail, saying their names really, really makes a big difference. It definitely gets people's attention. So I appreciate that support that they've given me. And I just want to thank all of you as well for being here. And for those who might view the recording as well, any support that you can offer. We're trying to do something special here in El Dorado County and do what we can to get someone, help get me on the bench to try to do some great things. And I appreciate whatever support you all can give me. So thank you all very much from the bottom of my heart.
And Gary, it looks like we also have another special guest in the room here, Ellen and Bob. Do those names sound familiar?
They do. That's my mom and dad. I don't know if they can appear on the screen.
Let's see. Ellen and Bob, you're allowed to unmute.
We'll see what we get when they unmute. It might be like close to somebody's nose, or who knows.
I thought we did.
Oh,
There they are.
oh, there they are. Well, they're unmuted. Yeah, I just want to send a lot of love to my parents. They've been so supportive of me my entire life, of course, but particularly in this campaign. And they've made me the person that I am today. So it's just, I love having them here on this call, on this Zoom meeting, and just having their support every day of my life. So thank you both.
All the way from Florida.
That's right.
Look at that, Gary. Your popularity is, reaches from coast to coast. Look at that. That's what you get when you vote for Gary Slossberg for judge. Well, we're going to close out. Thank you, everyone, for joining today. Thank you, Gary, for bringing us all together. And I will let you close. You're the candidate. I will let you close with any final thoughts.
Well, again, I just want to thank everyone. And the election's on June 7th. So it's important that you get out and vote. You can vote anytime between now and the election through drop boxes or, the mail-in ballots. I hope you check out my website if you haven't yet had the chance to do so. Check out the endorsements. You can see a bit about my bio. And I hope you agree that I'm, the best experienced and best positioned to take on this responsibility. So I appreciate the support that those of you on here have given me already, and hope you help me get out the message to as many voters as possible. So thank you very much and have a wonderful evening.
Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful evening and good luck, Gary. We're rooting for you.
Thank you.